Welcome everybody and good afternoon and thanks for joining this session. My name is Jamal Gafsi. I'm here with Gautam Tapar and we will be talking to you about AI and a new product that we just launched this morning called AI Builder. We're very excited to share with you what this product is about. But let's first start with AI. Organizations who are incorporating AI into their processes and flows will largely outpace their competitors at different levels. Revenues, converting leads to customers, and last but not least, being able to attract talents to their organizations. In less than 5 years from now, companies that will embrace AI are planning to do so at about 40% of the entire company landscape. In order to do that, AI needs to be more accessible, and specifically the perception of AI being complicated and complex to use and to access needs to be changed. AI's untapped potential lies in the hands of those with the business problems to solve. These are the people on the ground that know best about their day-to-day businesses, and these are the people who will benefit most from AI. If just they could access AI in an easy way. But very small portion of companies today have the luxury and the means, the funding, the skills to build AI solutions to solve their business problems. The vast majority of companies today across the globe, they cannot build AI solutions to first automate their processes and second, predict outcomes of their businesses to improve those businesses. Think about your own company. How many employees use AI on a day-to-day basis today? That leads us to the must to democratize access to AI across organizations. For those of you who participated in the keynote speech today and followed James's talk, you have seen how he was describing the digital feedback loop and digital transformation journey. Digital transformation journey started with converting manual processing of very siloed data, by the way, in many, many cases on paper form, into application-based processing of digitized data. AI will take that transformation from digital to automated processes. To accelerate that, AI needs to be infused at all different levels, within all different departments, within corporations. So, how are we going to democratize AI? Today, we're excited, many of us in the room, part of Microsoft and part of this journey, to introduce AI Builder, the no-code AI solution in the Power Platform. AI Builder enables every business user to tailor AI to their specific business needs using their unique data. No need for data scientists, nor for pro developers to take your applications and processes and make them more intelligent. Because it's customizable, AI Builder will help a broad range of corporations and industries, including retail, manufacturing, banking, and more. AI Builder is benefiting and leveraging all the Azure AI technologies and investments that have been done in the past and that will be done in the future. Starting today, AI Builder is available in public preview in the US and in Europe. AI Builder, as I said, is a low-code, no-code AI capability that spans the Power Platform and Dynamics 365 applications. Let me give you two examples. PowerApps today enable users to easily create applications for their businesses. AI Builder will provide the way to add AI into these applications. The same way, Flow today enables businesses to automate their day-to-day tasks. AI Builder will enable these businesses to infuse AI into those automations. Because of the fact that AI Builder is part of the Power Platform, it natively integrates with the Common Data Service, and it leverages the 230 plus data connectors to onboard business-specific data from external sources. AI Builder is a capability of the Power Platform, as I said, which is accessible from within the Microsoft Power Apps and Flow. It provides point-and-click AI solutions that solves everyday's problems and tasks, such as form processing, object recognition, binary and text classification. Today, we're launching AI Builder with 5 different scenarios. That will grow as we go, and we will be updating you on the advances of those different developments. Let me just highlight some of these different scenarios so that give you a flavor of what AI Builder is starting to cover and what solutions we're bringing to market. Binary classification enables to predict yes or no business outcomes based on historical data trends with historical outcomes. You can think of many, many scenarios and use cases that would support this specific scenario. Just to name 2 of them, you can, based on historical data, predict whether your customer is going to churn, yes or no. Another example would be for a bank to predict the loan risk profile of a given customer. Is it high or low? The second scenario I want to introduce is form processing. This is enabling digitizing your forms so that you can extract information, either store it or process it. Can trigger Flow just to take an action on it. Examples would be extracting text information from PDF files. Another example would be extracting invoice information from camera and obviously actioning on it through Flow integration. The third scenario consists of, which is called object recognition and detection, consists of identifying, counting, and locating objects within images. For those of you who have been in the keynote speech this morning, you've seen the demo of J&J Pepsi, and this is related to enabling for product inventory detection from smartphone camera. And I hope you've seen the whole evolution from paper to digital thanks to the PowerApps implementation, and then taking it to the next level of the journey through AI Builder. Second example could be recognizing parts of a machine within a certain fabric. The fourth scenario is text classification that consists of automating text tagging to improve processes. And at the end, really accessing untapped data that you own in your organization today. Examples would include classifying product feedback coming from your customers. Today, many of these are handled manually. Think of that impact of the huge, not only time saving, but also automating that process and generating way more accurate data and way more accurate outcomes. Another example is routing customer requests and again, triggering actions out of them. Last but not least, business card reader enables to extract contact information from camera. If you didn't visit our booth, I encourage you to do it. That will enable you also to discover this very nice feature where we will ask you to just get us your business card, and we will just use the business card reader to automatically and very quickly extract your contact information. And you can think of that, obviously, to route it into our CE systems and Dynamics 365 customer systems. Let me recap. AI Builder we're introducing today is an easy-to-use, guided, point-and-click AI solution for businesses. It is empowering every employee and every person within any organization to tailor AI and build AI solutions to their specific business needs based on their unique data. No need for technical expertise to do so. AI Builder is part of the Power Platform, and as such, enables your applications and processes to be more intelligent for higher efficiency and revenue growth. Finally, AI Builder takes care of all the complexity and infrastructure. You don't need to be worried about all of that, as it is natively integrated within the Power Platform. All the infrastructure, security, compliance is handled through the Power Platform. With this, I'm going to hand over to Gautam, who will be showing you exciting demo about the AI Builder offering that we're launching today. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamil. I hope I'm not too loud for you guys. My name is Gautam Thapar. I'm a product manager on the AI Builder team. What I'm going to do today is try to show you guys what it takes to take AI Builder and incorporate it into your Power Applications. So if something doesn't work, you can blame the PowerApps team. Let's go ahead and shift gears. And just for my, just to show of hands, if you don't mind, how many of you guys have actually built a Power App before? Wow, that's excellent. So this is going to go pretty well. How many of you guys since morning have actually gone to the booth and attended anything about AI Builder or seen any sort of scenarios work and whatnot? Very few. That's good. So what I'm going to go do today is try to project a typical scenario for you guys. And the scenario is one where there is manufacturing involved. And in this particular manufacturing instance, what we're producing is steel plates. So there's an organization. They are set up for building steel plates. There's a manager who's gone through the digital feedback loop and eliminated the paper, if you may. But what he's basically still left to do is to inspect each one of those steel plates that come out of production manually. And as he actually goes through them manually, he marks them as are they defective or are they not defective. So let's actually look at that application. There you go. So it's called Steel Plate Management. Let's actually go ahead and launch the app itself. So what you see in front of you is an application. Just give me a second. I need to exit out of the presentation mode because it won't let me otherwise use my computer. OK, so what you see in front of you is this application. It's like a typical web app, right? So what it's basically showing you on the left is a list of all the steel plates that basically have come through. If you click on them, you'll see the right side, the metrics are basically changing. I'm no steel metal expert or whatnot, so I don't know what these mean. But from a process standpoint, you can imagine it's pretty cumbersome for the guy to actually go do, because he's actually going to be clicking on each one of those items on the left. And then he goes ahead and from this drop-down, clicks on yes or no, and then updates it accordingly for somebody to sort of take further action on it. Now, we want to be smart. We want to actually go ahead and infuse artificial intelligence into that. So how are we going to do that? So if you imagine, what is the guy basically making a decision on? He's making a decision based on, is the steel plate defective or it's not? So if you go back to what my colleague Jamil just showed to you right now, it's a typical binary classification kind of a scenario where you're answering the question in yes or no. So let's go ahead and before I change the application in any way, let's go ahead and build a binary classification model that will read from historic data where somebody has been punching in yes and no by manually inspecting all of the steel plates. We'll read all that historical data, train a model based on that, and once the model is trained, we'll operationalize it, put it in production, and it'll take that training that it's done, and then it'll start scoring based on that anything in the future or the stuff that is already in the system right now, whether the prediction is to actually whether the prediction says that it's a defective plate or not. So let's see how simply we can do that. So now this is your typical PowerApps portal that you actually end up in. You will see that we have a left node called AI Builder. If you expand on it, you'll see two more tabs. One is the Build tab, which gives you the option to start selecting from a gamut of scenarios that Jamil just basically walked you through. And then the second one is the Models tab. We'll go through it in a second as we progress through the demo. And by the way, you guys can stop me at any point in time if there's any confusion and you want to ask me a question or whatnot, okay? Just raise your hand and I can stop and we can answer the question. So just for for the demo itself, like I said, it's a binary classification kind of problem. Let's go ahead and give this model that we're going to create a name. So I say steel plate demo, and then I say create. Before create, if you just take a look at what this is telling you, is that it needs data coming back from some entity. What effectively that really means is, for any sort of a training or AI model to work, it needs to take a look at historical data effectively, right? So we will be using data that is already inside that common data service from the previous application that I showed you, where somebody was manually going and saying yes, no for each one of the things that they were inspecting. So let's go ahead and hit create. So the next step is basically, as Jamil pointed out, no code experience, but yet, even with a no code experience, an extremely simple experience where we have a wizard on the left that sort of guides you where you are. We have quick tips on the right that tell you exactly what you're trying to do. So the main screen is basically asking you a question now. So what is it that you want to go and predict? In our case, we want to predict faults in steel plates. So let's look at my CDS instance if there's data about something like that in that CDS instance. So apparently there's an entity that's called steel plates fault, very conveniently named. And if I go and check out the fields in that, oh my God, there's actually a field called fault in there too, apparently. So that's pretty easy for me to actually go get started because the data already existed, and naturally because the guy was actually choosing between yes and no. Very convenient for me to get started. I hit next. The process asks me a bunch of more things. What is it asking me now? It's saying select the fields that will influence what you end up predicting. Now this is really where the meat of the entire thing is, right? For somebody who understands what it takes to basically go build steel plates, also understands what it takes for a steel plate to be defective or not defective. So if there was an expert who knows about steel plates, he could actually go ahead and select maybe a couple of these fields and train only on them. But I'm no steel plate expert, so I'm going to go ahead and tell the model to select all 36 fields and start training on them, right? I hit next. And this is the last step. The process is telling me that I'm going to go ahead and train your model based on the 36 fields in the entity that you selected, and then you'll be able to use that model in production. Let's hit train. Fingers crossed. It's a demo. Oh, your model is training. Excellent. So this is telling me the model is training. You can go to the models and take a look at it. This is the other tab that I talked about. If I sort by last trained, what you see at the top, it says steel plate demo. And the next thing what it's saying for you is that the model is actually training. So at this point in time, all the 36 fields that we had talked about, historical data that exists in those 36 fields about the fact that whether things were working or things were broken or not broken is taken into account. And what is happening is that our system is training a model for consumption. So we can wait here for a couple of seconds, or we can get started maybe on building out the application and then start consuming in it. What would you like to do? Shall we go into the app and then start building it out? Yes, sir. All right, let's do that. So this is the app. Let's exit out of this app by saying web.powerapps.com. Same thing that I did before. I'm going to go ahead and click on my apps. And the app that we were using was the steel plate management. Let's go ahead and edit the application. Because what I'm going to do is, instead of building a brand new complete application from scratch, I'm going to take pieces of the application that are already built and then use them and then add to it. At this point, you can ask me any questions if you want to about PowerApps, but given that you guys have already built a lot of PowerApps, this should come pretty naturally to you. So what you see is the same app now in our studio experience. On the left, effectively, is a gallery where we are pulling from all the data from the CDS source where we have information about all the steel plates. Let's go ahead and insert some labels in it. The first label, I'm going to put it right here and call it fault probability. Only if I can see probability. Yeah. And I don't think 13 is a good size. Let's make it 18, and let's make it bold. And I'm going to line it up with the button right here. I'll go ahead and put a label underneath it, because for the probability itself, I want to see a value. So I'm going to put it right underneath it. And once we have the app all wired up and stuff, we'll start seeing some stuff in here. I'm going to go ahead and put up a button just to make things look pretty. Make it hopefully look like a circle. And place it all the way over here. So let's just get started with just this much. But before I proceed forward, I need to check what's happening with my model, because I need to start telling this app that the data that we're training on, or we will be scoring on rather, is going to be written into an entity. Let's go back and see what happened there. So clearly, the model that we started has finished the training. That was the one that we started, if you remember, steel plate demo. Let's click into it. This is what we call as the model's description page. What it's actually telling me right now is that this model has about 66% efficacy. Pretty good based on the historic data that it has. You can imagine as the data sort of starts increasing, I can retrain the model, and the model's efficacy will also improve. Let's go ahead and assume that 66% is a good enough efficacy for our model. I'm going to go ahead and publish this. Now, publishing is effectively what I mentioned to you as operationalizing and putting this thing into production. So what it's actually doing is, the training has happened at this point in time. Now I'm actually putting this model into production so I can start consuming the outcomes out of this particular model into my application itself. We, in this model description page, also give you tips, as you may have noticed. where you can do things like improve your model over the course once you have more data. You can understand the training report. If you clicked on view details, it'll give you a sense of, out of all the parameters that it actually took to sort of understand or build the training for the model itself, what's the efficacy of a particular field, if you may. So over the course, you can, once you get really comfortable with it, you don't have to select all the 36 fields just like I did. You can select the ones that really make a difference for the model itself, right? So now the model is still publishing. Hopefully it works. Fingers crossed. You give it a couple of more seconds. In the meanwhile, if you guys have any questions for me, I'm happy to answer them. No? Yes, go for it.
So when you're training the model, right, what exactly is happening? Is it just going through the historical data and just doing a statistical analysis of yes, no, or whatever? What exactly is happening?
It's actually, yes, so your question was what happens when you're talking about training a model. Training effectively is telling a machine to basically do what I would have done as a human myself based on historic data. So if I've historically seen a whole bunch of steel plates gone through the process of QA, I can probably go and detect the fact that there's a steel plate that is broken or not broken, right? Now, from my standpoint, when we talk about a machine learning model, you described it exactly as it happens. What we do is we take a look at historical data and we say from all the parameters in the historical data where you actually found a fault in a particular steel plate or you didn't find a fault within a particular steel plate, what were the different parameters that were contributing to it? And then we build a model around it. The reason for building that model is that the next time you get a batch of steel plates, you have a whole bunch of parameters. You can run those parameters through that particular training model, and then it will basically say, guess what? Last time I statistically saw the fact that this guy was a bad plate, if you may, or a broken plate. So I'm going to give it a probability score that is higher in the sense that it's probably going to be a damaged one or not. So that's exactly what it does. So anyhow, I'll answer the next guys. Oh, yeah, sure, go for it. So that's a good question. Can you automate the retraining of the model? In public preview, you cannot, but we absolutely have that on the roadmap that by the time we actually get into our general availability, you will be able to automate the fact that I want to retrain the model based on a bunch of triggers. So you'll be able to do that too. Anyhow, so if I go back to the models page, if you remember, some of the things that don't have any annotation about live or published status in front of them means that they're not published, they're not live, they're not operational. But since we hit publish on our steel plate demo, it shows us that the model is live. So the model being live effectively means that at this point in time, this model is scoring based on whatever it's trained on. And the output of all that scoring is actually going into a particular entity called steel plate faults, which we, if you remember, saw before. But we created a separate field inside there where we were calling it AIB_fault predicted. And in the future, as we sort of progress towards GA, we'll give the ability for you guys to actually go build a new field yourself instead of the system generating it for you. Anyhow, the training is complete. I am done from creating a model standpoint. But let's now see how we can consume this inside that Power App that we started talking about. Let's go back to that app. I'm going to go ahead and save it and open it one more time really quickly because while I was actually training, I want to make sure all the data that got populated and scored and whatnot shows up in here too. So anyhow, so let's go back to that fault probability. That's our first step. Let's think about whether there's going to be a fault in this thing or not, and how do we actually predict it. So let's remove this text because I don't need to see anything in this particular field but the probability of the issue happening. So I'm going to basically give it some parameters. You might be very familiar with this. On the left side, what we basically call this is a gallery. So I'm going to say gallery 1 dot selected dot. If you remember, we had a couple of fields in there where our outcomes were being written. So I'm going to basically say probability. And in the probability, if you remember, we named our model steel plate demo, right? So it says this is the one that you basically started with. And I'll hit enter. So apparently it's not scoring for some reason. Maybe there is a fault in this. Let me try that one more time. Again, same problem. Let me see if I use a different one that I trained before, if that one works. Because that one for sure would have scored. There you go. So apparently the scoring has not happened for this particular model right now, or it's happening in the background right now. So what I did was I used a previous model that I trained already with the same data set. So what you see returning back to you is 0.98, right? So let's first change it to 18 so we can read it, make it bold, maybe center this a little bit. Now 0.98 is okay, but I don't know what 0.98 really means, so let me go ahead and actually convert it into something meaningful like a percentage or something that makes sense for somebody. So I'm going to use the concatenate function, convert this into text, and multiply that by 100, add percentage to that. Hopefully that did the trick. So it's telling me that this particular steel plate that we were talking about, based on the model that it ran through and scored, there's a 98% fault probability, if you may, right? So pretty convenient. Right? I was able to use the outcomes that were in the model itself and be able to wire it up into an app very, very simply. I can take this and change it and make it even slightly better. But let's go ahead and change the color to green because I like green. Let's go ahead. Yeah. No. Yeah, so basically what it told you was the efficacy of the model itself is 66%. Like ideally it'll be able to predict with 66% accuracy. But within the 66% accuracy with all the stuff that it's seen, it thinks that this one particularly would probably be faulty, as an example. Over the course, when you start building more data into the system and retraining it, you will probably get better results coming out of it as well. So for this one, let's actually, if you guys are already pretty familiar with this stuff, so let's actually change the text on this. Where's the text field? And basically say, no, the same thing. So gallery 1 dot selected dot predicted, and I think we were using the false one because the previous one hadn't trained. Let's add an if in front of it because we want to change the color and make it fancy, or change the text in this case. Say yes, else say no. There you go. So what did just happen, if you can take a look at it, is what I did was I instructed that particular button to change their text based on the selection in the gallery. And if the prediction was that it's going to be faulty, it's going to be yes. But if the prediction says it's going to be not faulty, it's going to be no. Now that works pretty well, but now if I look at how will I easily see yes or no if I put this app and play it, I have to click through a bunch of them. You're seeing some yeses and nos happening. It's not very easy for me to sort of, on one click flow, basically be able to see everything. So to make it even more simpler, how about I quickly go ahead and edit the gallery itself. Copy this button. Paste it in there. Move it to the right. And the only difference being that for this button, instead of looking at the item in the gallery that was selected, I want to basically say, this item dot yes and no. What happened really is that now you can automatically see I don't have to click something to know if there's some fault in it or not. It's automatically for each one of the things, it's saying yes or no within that bubble or by just getting the data from the CDS service itself. Isn't that fantastic? So like quite literally within like 15 minutes or 5 minutes or whatnot, I was able to actually go do a whole bunch of things into an application by just injecting AI, which I created and trained, and it's scoring in the background within like a 10-minute time period, if you may. I can do more fancier stuff if you want to look at it, but seems like you got the vibe on how you actually take the predictions from the outputs that are going into the common data service and making use of them within the Power Applications itself. And that's really the crux of yes, go for it.
For the training, is it the data models only like text number-based, or could it be also training of images or variations in images that you're loading into the training model?
Excellent question. So the question was, is the training based on text only or numbers only or something like that, or can you actually use the training for images and things like that as well? So in this particular example was binary classification, where we did classification of the text itself, where the answer is really binary, yes or no, and so on and so forth, right? If you remember the previous screen that we had in the AI Builder flow, we give you the ability to do object detection, for example, right? So we have 4 canonical templates that we're starting with. So in these 4 canonical templates, binary classification works with text and data that's in CDS, but it's a 2-option field option field prediction model that we have. So anything that can say a yes or a no or a true or a false, then you can basically use this model over there. Naturally, you can imagine the evolution of this. The evolution of this is going to be 3-option fields, 4-option fields, things like that. Multi-option fields that you can actually go predict on, and the team's already working on it. When it comes to actually going and doing image recognition, what we have is the object detection model, which I'm not going to demo for you today because I want my esteemed colleagues who've actually built this stuff to demo it for you in the 200 session that they have tomorrow. That gives you a good reason for you to actually go attend the session as well. Do go there because they're going to be demoing each one of these scenarios live in front of you, so you can actually go ahead and say, I have a whole bunch of images. Can I train on those images? And based on those, the trained images, next time I see something, if I click on it, can you give me an answer? That's exactly what you saw today in the morning when you saw the keynote demo. What happened was James, in this case, G&J Pepsi, went into a store, took their camera phone, took it out, took a picture of the aisle where all the products are laid out, and they were able to predict the fact that there's 4 rows of Mountain Dew that are actually on the shelf, right, automatically, because they trained that model based on that. So, yep.
My colleague is saying, sorry.
No, go for it.
I'm not sure whether you're hearing me. If your question is about the technology that is just like underneath the different scenarios, the answer is we're using different technologies that are obviously provided by our Azure AI and machine learning teams. For object recognition, we use custom vision. For binary classification, we use AutoML and machine learning technologies, just to make sure that we have that also covered. Text, we use also cognitive services technologies, and so forth and so on. Yeah.
See, the idea, I mean, it is a pretty important start point that I want to make here. What we are building here is not something that is out of the ordinary that didn't exist with our Azure-based AI offerings. But what we're doing is, what we exactly did with PowerApps was to democratize app creation in a way where you don't have to go to IT and say, hey, you know what, here are my requirements, learn my business process and build an application for me. You basically said, with my own knowledge of PowerPoint and Excel, I can build my application myself. We are doing exactly that on top of Pro AI offered by Microsoft by democratizing AI. You can do exactly what we did with PowerApps. So now I showed you within 3 steps, you can actually create a binary classification model, train it, and now it's in production, it's scoring stuff. In 5 steps, you can do a similar thing with text classification, which we'll demo for you tomorrow. In roughly about 3 or 4 steps, you can do the same thing with object classification. All you really need to do is supply a minimum number of images to the model, tag those images in the way you want them to be tagged, such that being identified. This green bottle happens to be a Mountain Dew. The black one happens to be a Pepsi Zero, so on and so forth. Once you put all those tags and train the model, the next time, anytime you click a picture, the model basically will return back the fact that it has identified what it needs to do. So some of these will come tomorrow. I don't want to take the thunder away, but please do attend the session. Yes, there's a question.
So is the binary classification, for example, is training the model only as smart as your data? So if you have a guy that, kind of sucks at his job, and the fields that you know are important, he isn't filling out, and you build the AI to recognize those fields, but his information in those fields is wrong, the efficacy could say like 98%, but that would be incorrect, right?
You would, yeah, you're absolutely right, and you should be firing that person right away, because any model that you're building is based on historical data, and if the historical data happens to be crappy and the guy's still on the job, you have a different problem, right? So you should definitely go fix that. But you can imagine the evolution of what we're trying to do here is a lot of the Pro AI constructs that already exist, we're trying to bring them back to citizen developers, right? So things like when you look at the score, you still have the ability to say yes or no and override it if you wanted to, right? So over the course of how we develop this product, what we're going to end up doing is make sure constructs like retraining, automatic training, training in real time sort of exists as well, because your data is not stopping. Your data is coming back into your database system. As new data keeps coming in, we keep scoring it for you. And guess what? While we are scoring it, knowing how we were predicting and what the score we're predicting with the score and the actual result was, if you did override it, we can improve the model, right? So all those things are very much on the cards for us to actually go build. We just want to have to be able to do that in a way that a citizen developer can actually go understand this. These pro concepts already do exist. It's just a matter of making it so and adding that secret sauce that it becomes dead simple for anybody to actually go ahead and employ those experiences. Yes?
Say this is binary, yes or no.
Yes.
But if you would say be a business engineer and you know what you're talking about, so the data is good, maybe there's parameters where you say this is yes, this is no, and there is a margin for maybe. Can you say update
So good question. Your question is, if I have to genericize it, can I have more than a yes or a no sort of an option? Yes, you can. The people sitting 2 rows behind you are actually working on that right now. So by the time we go to GA, you will GA being generally available, you will basically be able to build option sets with multiple options and be able to predict based on those things. It's just we wanted to make sure you can imagine taking a step like this which is not an industry standard. Nobody in the industry has done what you've seen today in democratizing AI in literally 3 steps, being able to create a model and operationalize it and put it into production. And then you already seen the power of the Power Platform with the PowerApps. How easy was it for me to actually just go ahead with my knowledge of just Excel and Excel expression language, just be able to incorporate the outcomes that are written into my database into my application? I mean, imagine the efficiency that we're talking about. So this is unprecedented. So for us also, as we're sort of building this out, we want to go through the journey of building this out with you guys and taking your guys' feedback into consideration and then sort of moving forward. But yes, that's very much happening. Yes, sir. I'm sorry, can I take that question again? Excellent question. I'll answer it in a slightly different manner. Your question was, will this be available in all PowerApps plans? Anything related to licensing or pricing, we're not disclosing at this point in time. We'll be disclosing that closer to GA. But the expectation and the fact that we are a cross-cutting capability of the Power Platform should basically give you a sense that we should be able to power all these experiences within PowerApps, all experiences within things like flows, and Dynamics applications as well.
The underlying infrastructure relies on CDS. So if you don't have CDS, you cannot use AI Builder. So this is definitely a prerequisite.
And it leads me to a good sort of next slide where we can talk about what's coming. So you can ask me questions accordingly as well. So as we release today, we are releasing 5 capabilities, if you may, of the AI Builder platform, right? In public preview, so you guys can start using it. You can start giving us feedback. We are already available and wired up in PowerApps and Flow communities. There is an AI Builder tag in there. Go in there and tell us what you like, what you don't like, what you'd like to see in the future based on your guys' scenarios and so on, so we can actually go improve and build those things. The team's going to be busy working on general availability with SLA guarantees over the next couple of months. The second thing, as I mentioned, addressing feedback from the public preview. So it really depends. We want to really do it in a way where you guys are giving us meaningful feedback so we can build it accordingly. So use our community, use our forums for both PowerApps and Flows. The AI Builder tag exists in there. Mark it and tell us what you would like to see or what you're not liking as well, for that matter, so we can actually go improve on it. The third one happens to be extend Dynamics 365 and grow up to Pro AI. And this is a very important one that I wanted to call out. If you can imagine the point that my colleague Jamil made, all the data is being written in the common data service. And that's the substrate, if you may, that is the common language or the common platform that all of business applications are built on. Our Dynamics 365 CE applications, our out-of-the-box Dynamics 365 AI applications, Power Platform-based Power Apps that you've been building, any workflows that you're writing in our Microsoft Flow product, everything is natively built on top of this common data service. So naturally, in fact, even as of today, if you were to build an AI Builder model, what did it do? It wrote an outcome back into CDS. And you can, in your professionally developed Dynamics 365 applications, take advantage of that outcome that was written by that model already today. The second part is also pretty important because when you think about the Power Platform, we always talk about a no-cliff story. We don't want you to get to a point in your development process that you hit a wall or something and you say, I can't go any further. And that's what we want to do exactly with our AI product as well. So by the time we GA, our intent is to make sure that there is a pro-extensibility angle to this as well. If you get to a point where some of your models and stuff that you've built, you need more expertise for somebody to sort of go into, we will provide a single-click functionality for you to be able to export that model out into our Pro AI offerings that we have through Azure ML. And you should be able to use all the native tools that exist through Azure to be able to use it and extend it further. Even as of today, if you wanted to, you could use an Azure AI model that you've written up, wire it up using a custom connector, and use it in PowerApps. So we truly will have a no-cliff story even with our AI offering. And the last one being new scenarios. And new scenarios like things that this gentleman was asking about, it's right now binary classification. We want it to be generic prediction. So you can predict on not just yes or no, you can predict on multiple fields if you wanted to. We have a couple of other cognitive services that we want to be opening up things to as well. So there's a lot of scenarios that we have in our backlog, but things that you come back and tell us will also dictate in many ways how we open up and what we build next for the product. So to summarize, you saw a whole bunch of AI being done today in PowerApps. What we would like you to do is to actually try it out. It's available for you within 2 regions today. We've made it available in the United States and Europe. You can go ahead and use these 2 links. These are effectively short links to PowerApps and Flows' maker experiences. AI Builder is available in both of them. You can go and build your models, the 4 that we showed you right now, and make use of them in your applications or existing workflows if you wanted to. We have a workshop. It's a hands-on lab, and actually 2 of them at 8:15 to 10:15 a.m. and 1:15 to 3:15 p.m. tomorrow in room C113. Please go there. All our colleagues here from Microsoft that are sitting here who built the product out are going to be there to help you out and sort of take you through the journey of becoming citizen data scientists, if you may, and try all these scenarios out. We have a booth. We have probably have some swag still left there because there was a lot of traffic in the booth. We'd like you to come over there, ask us questions, talk about the product that we built, give us suggestions on what we can improve, what we can do differently, and whatnot. And finally, there's a couple of resources that you can use as well. There's the video that we have for the product. Go check it out. It's on YouTube. It's linked through our PowerApps blog by our GM, Charles Lamanna. Go read that blog. That explains the impetus for actually going and doing this work that we did in building AI Builder. And finally, try AI Builder, as I said. So that concludes the talk, the presentation. But if you have questions, I'm here to entertain them for you. Thank you.